ASIC confesses to political collusion. Martin North, John Adams, in the interest of the people. Hello, John, we're back.
Hello, sir. How are you today?
Yeah, very good, thank you. It's a beautiful spring day here in the UK. The birds are singing, the blossoms out, temperature's going up. Feels rather nice to be here at the moment.
Yes, well, while you're enjoying your life in England, I'm still here in Wollongong creating all sorts of controversies, and we have a devastating piece of news to reveal to the audience. And obviously, the title of the show is ASIC confesses to political collusion, which is something that flows on strongly from our show that we recorded in early March, which was The Final Secret, exposing the Australian Prime Minister. Now, before we get into the guts of what we're about to release today, Martin, is that the first thing we should say is that you and I are under somewhat of government surveillance. So what we can reveal to the audience is that we are being, me more than you, but you to some degree, is we are being monitored by the government. We are being monitored by ASIC. ASIC has been watching in the interests of the people. One thing I'll say, Martin, is that just so we can set the context is, last month I went to ASIC with a range of freedom of information requests. On Monday this week, a treasure trove of documents was released to me. ASIC provided a 21-page letter, and they said there was 15 employees that was holding 151 records about your truly, and they released 76 out of the 151. And so we've gone through quite a few. I've been able to go through all of them, and there's some very stark admissions in some of these records that we're going to go through today. But there is one file note, and just before we started recording, I sent that file note so you can have a look, which is a 2-page official memo about our show about exposing the Prime Minister. So ASIC is watching. ASIC is writing official notes about our recordings, our commentary, and we have the attention of the government's for you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the file note on our last show actually had a few factual errors in it, I noticed. But it is interesting that they're taking notes.
Yes. No, they are taking notes. The one thing is that they do have some factual errors in some of their notes, but just to go back to that show, they missed the whole point of the show. So the fact that they're now listening, and we know that they are listening, how about, Martin, we actually go back to what the whole show was about? The purpose of publishing that show was to say to ASIC and to the broader public that there is an issue when people are in the market engaging in commercial transactions, and they are clueless about an official investigation happening, and that things may be occurring that people shouldn't be aware of, but for whatever reason the government has kept it silent. Now, Martin, it's critical to acknowledge that in the 21-page letter I received on Monday, ASIC for the 4th time in 10 months has officially confirmed an investigation. So again, they've had the opportunity to close the chapter on the package. They have yet to do so. And so as of today, in Australia, it's the 24th of May, all we can say is that the investigation is still going on. And they are, obviously, they now know that I've gone to Parliament with a confidential submission about my concerns about the PM's involvement. But in all this summary that ASIC have put together, the key point is that the interest of the people is being hampered because ASIC, is not pursuing the matter to the level of aggressiveness that it requires. And again, going back to that show, one thing we said is, my barrister said that had he been leading the investigation, he could have got to the truth of the matter within 4 weeks and rushed to court. And here we are. We recorded that show at the beginning of March. Here we are at the end of May, and ASIC has still done nothing. And as you said, which is, very profound in that show. The silence is speaking volumes, and that is the silence which investors at some point, if my set of allegations prove to be true, that silence is what is going to cause widespread anger across the community. And that's the key point that ASIC did not include in their summary about our show.
And I think, John, to me, looking at the whole story and indeed the response to your FOI, the headline is ASIC is concerned more about form than substance. They want to be seen to be doing things and saying the right things, but they're not actually pulling the right levers. And, the bottom line is investors are actually exposed because of it.
So I've had the chance to go through all the 76 documents, hundreds of pages that I've been able to go through. And I have put together a bit of a press release. There's a couple of media organizations holding on to it. So we'll see what happens with that over the next short period. But I thought for the purposes of today's conversation, I would focus on a couple of key points that I think is worthwhile to get across to the audience. So there's 4 key revelations that come from this document dump I received from ASIC. The first one is ASIC is uninterested in the administration of justice and the rule of law. Rather, they are obsessed with public image and political management. So that's the first revelation. Second revelation is that ASIC actively seeks to collude with federal parliament, and here's obviously, given sort of my concerns about the integrity of the investigation to the package. Any suggestion or any active collusion with Parliament is a significant problem, and we actually have one email where they actually confess to collusion with the Parliament, which is a very damning statement and very concerning statement. We're going to actually show that statement soon. The third revelation is ASIC is incapable of accepting any responsibility for its operational performance, and they show no interest in the public interest. And then the last one is that ASIC is obsessed with appearances as opposed to substance. So these are the 4 revelations, which, again, I'll be publishing some of these documents with the inquiry, because I think the inquiry will find these documents very useful to understand. I mean, only a few months ago, Senator Bragg released a press statement saying ASIC has a sick culture. I think some of these statements we're about to go through demonstrate that ASIC is a very sick organization with some people who clearly have no dedication to law enforcement or the public interest. And this organization is so broken, it needs to be swept from top to bottom. And we need a completely different set of people in there and to ensure that financial crime is actually tackled effectively in this country.
Yeah, it seems to me that they're most interested in self-preservation and self-protection rather than protecting investors and the broader economy, which means that their purpose for being there at all is in question, right? And going back to what you said a little while ago, investors have assumptions about the way that the system works and what protections are in place. But words and figures differ because, in fact, we know that ASIC is only interested in preserving itself.
Indeed. Now, Martin, just so we're about to show 4 slides in which there are some 4 significant statements. Now, just to set the context for people, in early October of 2022, a number of people within ASIC are very upset with me because I published my independent analysis about ASIC's performance. So this is the Adams report that was which we covered back then. And we had some reporting by the ABC and News.com, and this was the report that triggered the 2 parliamentary inquiries that were established on the 27th of October. So in this early period of October, the fact that I published my report, the fact that it went to the media and the media made a big deal about it, this caused a lot of angst within ASIC, and this is the context in which we're going to show a series of comments. So let's go to slide 1, Martin. So on the 7th, I released my first volume of my analysis of ASIC on the 6th of October. So the day after, now Warren Day is the chief operating officer within ASIC. He is the most senior executive leader of the whole organization. So you have the commission, which is the people appointed by the treasurer, so the chairman, the deputy chairs, and then the associate or assistant commissioner. So you have the 5 people at the top, and then underneath the commission is where you have the executive leadership that run ASIC day to day. And of that executive leadership, Warren Day is the most senior. So in one email, he writes to the national media manager, quote, "Be good if enforcement could tell Adams his thing is no good soon." So the E and F in the slide means enforcement. So here you have the day after I expose ASIC for declining operational performance, which is this person's responsibility as the chief operating officer. The only thing he could say is, I hope this investigation in the package dies quickly so we can get rid of Adams. And so the reason why this is so shocking, Martin, is that Mr. Day has no interest in the truth, no interest in justice, no interest in the potential victims that may be out there that are victims of the alleged crime that I've gone to ASIC with. And all he wants is, let's get rid of Adams. I hope this person can go away. And so, again, now, the one thing I'll say, Martin, is that Warren Day isn't within the Office of Enforcement. So he works in a different part of ASIC. But when you have someone at the most senior levels basically saying, I hope this investigation gets shut down quickly because Adams is causing us a massive public relations problem. I mean, that is concerning because that gives you an insight into the thinking at the most senior levels of ASIC. They just care about protecting their own butts rather than actually ensuring that truth and justice is actually being served. And that is a shocking statement that when you have cops saying, or when you have people working in a leadership position within the police, and ASIC is the financial police, and saying, I just hope that this investigation can get shut down because this person's causing us too many problems. That is highly concerning.
Well, it is, John. And, clearly, directly or indirectly, he was, in a sense, trying to influence decisions inside their enforcement programs. And that's a problem. And the motivation? To shut people up rather than actually expose and deal with issues that you know and I know are real.
Yes. Now, the one big concern I have with this particular statement, Martin, is that Mr. Day said this in an email to the national media manager. Now, within ASIC, there's a group called the Executive Board, which includes the leadership of enforcement, and Mr. Day is the chair of that board. So if he's willing to say to the media team, I hope the Adams investigation gets killed off soon because he's causing us too many problems in the media, the big concern is, well, what has he said privately, perhaps verbally, to the enforcement leaders about me in the investigation into the package, and have those comments influence investigation one way or the other? So I mean, again, I think that you should not have senior people weighing in with a prejudicial bias one way or the other because someone is causing problems in the media.
Yeah, and again, if the first reaction when somebody is criticizing an organization is say, oh, we want to shut it down, we want to shut it up, we won't want to talk about it, that tells you something really important about the culture of the organization, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Now, we're going to go into slide 2, Martin. Now, so this slide 2 is going back a day earlier on the 6th of October, the day that I released my report. And this is the national media manager sending an email to Warren Day and a couple of other people. And he's basically talking about how my report is a bad news story. And so I'm not going to read the whole quote, but I'm just going to focus on a couple of sentences. So in the first paragraph, he says, quote, "Fact is, it is a very negative story without a doubt, and it really needs to be strongly and unequivocally refuted and countered at the next parliamentary committee hearing." But then in the second paragraph, he says, quote, I have discussed this with Warren, i.e. Warren Day, the person we just spoke about yesterday, who said he was preparing and hoping for an opportunity to respond. Not my area, I know, but I suggested we arrange a Dorothy Dixer to make sure it is upfront and as early and loudly as possible. Now, Martin, what is a Dorothy Dixer? It's a preset softball question, so you can actually give the answer that you want. So here you have the national media manager of ASIC basically saying, the next time we appear before Parliament, let's get a politician to ask us the question we want them to ask so we can give the answer we want to give. Now, how does that happen? That only happens if ASIC has colluded with a politician before the committee hearing. And this is a damning revelation, because when government agencies and bureaucrats appear before Parliament, Parliament's role is to provide genuine oversight and to make sure that the government is working efficiently and effectively, and they are basically doing the job that they want. And here you have an ASIC media manager saying the fix is in. These committee hearings, these Senate estimates, these other forums in which ASIC is questioned and tested about what they do and how they do it. He's basically saying we have a way to fix the questions before we get there, and if we fix the questions, we then get to spew our propaganda, our version of events, rather than actually being tested genuinely about what ASIC is doing, and to provide the Parliament with honest and objective and robust answers. That is obviously a high big concern, because, Martin, what did we say in that show about the final secret? We said that there's a possibility of some form of collusion between the government and ASIC, given the Prime Minister's association with certain people linked to the package. And so that allegation or that suggestion that I've made to Parliament suggests that there could be or has been some collusion within law enforcement and the government and the Prime Minister. And now we have basically an email from the 6th of October in which they confess, yes, in different context, it's not about investigation, but they do say, yes, we have the ability to collude with politicians, and we can get a Dorothy Dixer up. And so I'll be meeting a senator tomorrow, and I'll be talking about this particular issue in the context of when people tune in to see what's happening in Parliament. People wants to know that they're looking at something real, that we don't want a make-believe performance where it looks like there is genuine, there is oversight, but everything has been pre-arranged beforehand and it's all scripted. So the fact that we have this now revelation that ASIC's view is they can fix questions, they can push propaganda, and they can evade accountability and oversight. Again, I'm just stunned that I'm stunned that they talk like this, but I'm more stunned that this practice has been in operation, and obviously ASIC has the ability to basically fix parliamentary proceedings.
Yeah, and it's worth respecting, John, isn't it, that we had a suspicion that perhaps there was some influencing going on behind before the Senate actually voted on whether to investigate ASIC or not. And, I think this probably goes to character, doesn't it? I mean, they will do whatever they can do behind the scenes to protect their own backside.
Yes. Now, the question here, Martin, is what we need to dig further into, and obviously see what information can be obtained is, well, who do they collude with? Who can they call up to ask the Dorothy Dixer? How often has it happened? On how many occasions has it happened in the past? And obviously, particularly moving forward, is what can Parliament do to ensure that ASIC is facing serious oversight as opposed to make-believe oversight? Because, again, one of the reasons why you and I decided to take on the mantle of trying to hold ASIC to account over its performance is because its performance has been woeful for 15 years. it has continued to evade accountability, whether it's reviews, inquiries, or the Royal Commission. And so what I've attempted to do, particularly with my reports from last October, is to say, no, this time we actually have to make a difference. And that's why I called for an inquiry. Inquiry was forthcoming. And now we know that one of the reasons why they have been able to avoid some form of accountability and reform over the last few years is because the fix is in. And they now admit it in writing. The fix is in. They can fix Parliament. They can rig parliamentary proceedings. And that is a highly concerning revelation situation. I'll be writing to a number of politicians about it, basically saying, well, ASIC has now billed the cat, and you're all now exposed. So cut out the practice.
Well, I guess there's a broader question, John, that, ASIC is one government entity that potentially is influencing, but how many others are doing similar things? And to what extent is this endemic within the political and regulatory environments that Australians trust?
That's a very, very good question, Martin. Is that I've got to say, Martin, is when I was a kid, I used to watch the World Wrestling Federation on TV, and I initially thought back in the 80s when I was a kid that it was all real, and then I realized it was all scripted. Well, even though I used to work in Parliament, there's a lot of people out there who watch parliamentary proceedings thinking that it's all real, and now we have some bureaucrats saying that, well, maybe some of it is like wrestling. Maybe some of it is real. Maybe some of it's fake, or some of it's scripted, or some of it's fixed. And that's an appalling set of circumstances, and that absolutely has to be exposed. And hopefully we can find an audience, whether it's Senator Roberts or Rennick or others, who are willing to potentially expose this practice across a number of agencies if it is widespread across the Parliament.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, John, going on to the next point, they referred to your report as the silly report, which in itself I think is pretty disingenuous.
Yes. So if we go on to slide 3, Martin, is that it's the same national media manager. So this is the 11th of October when ASIC appears before the House of Representatives Economics Committee, and that this is the first time where they are asked, or there is a reference to my report. So the MP at the time was Tanya Lawrence from Labor. She referenced my report, and Warren Day, who we've talked about in this episode, referred to my report as simplistic. And you and I did a couple of shows in October last year where we played Mr. Day saying that my report was simplistic, and we thought that was a ridiculous comment. Well, during that, in terms of that hearing, the chairman of ASIC, Joseph Longo, made a number of comments about ASIC's enforcement record, trying to put a positive light on a very sad story. And all the national media manager could say is a spirited defense by the chair of that silly John Adams report. Now, the key thing, Martin, is that even till today in May 2023, that no one in ASIC has said my report was wrong. All they said was, well, in this email, they're saying that it's silly. But the numbers are the numbers. They're their numbers from their annual report. There is a systemic decline in ASIC's operational performance. They're doing fewer investigations. The no further action rate of reports of alleged misconduct has gone through the roof. And there are numerous examples which have been exposed in this inquiry to date where ASIC had the ability to take action to crack down on white-collar crime, and they didn't. And we are now seeing numerous people telling their horror stories before the Parliament of how their life was destroyed because ASIC didn't do their job efficiently and effectively. And so, again, rather than actually dealing with the substance of my report, all they can say is either it is silly, rather than actually saying we're doing a poor job. But not only that we're doing a poor job, but our performance is going backwards, and we need to actually be honest with Parliament and the public and actually say, how do we turn this around? So the fact that they would call my report silly when it's their own data, I mean, that just proves how not only silly they are, but again, they have no interest in accountability, no interest in acknowledging that they need to do better, and the public interest be damned.
Yes, and I think it's very significant that the last comment that we'll look at today, they said they have to be seen to be taking this seriously, more so than the website deserves. This is all about form rather than substance again. They are not prepared to engage with the critical issues that you highlighted. They are trying to sort of close it off, shut it down, and frankly, will do everything and anything not to engage with the material issues that we've been highlighting.
Yes. So in terms of slide 4 that's on the screen, Martin, so this is again the same national media manager who has a loose mouth. It's very interesting, Martin, because obviously you now living in England, the English are well known for being very proper and knowing when to speak and when not to speak, and yet this particular national media manager is speaking out of turn. And then, so on the 5th of October, when this person has been approached by news.com.au because of my report, the day before I officially released the report, all I can say is, quote, unfortunately, we do have to be seen to take this guy more seriously than he and his website deserve. So again, I've said this all along, Martin, is that ASIC views me as a blue-collar bogan from Wollongong that doesn't deserve the time of day because I don't come from a big national firm. I don't have a recognizable brand behind me, even though I used to work for a Big Four accounting firm, even though I know how to do the analysis, and you read the report and you've worked at big consulting firms as well. So we've worked behind those brands. We have the skills. We know what we're doing. We know how to crunch the numbers, and I crunched the numbers and had a whole bunch of smart people review my work before I published it. So I was confident that when I did press the button that it was a high quality piece of work. And again, they haven't been able to tear the report apart. But all they said was blue collar bogans from Wollongong don't deserve to criticize their own government. And it's just, again, shocking that they would think along these lines. And this is the attitude of ASIC. If you come from a big organization, if you are a big wig, if you are, the creme de la creme of Australian society, they'll take you seriously. If you're just an ordinary mum and dad investor or some YouTube commentator from Wollongong, you're a nobody. And their attitude is, their natural default position is, we're just going to ignore these people. So when we spoke about in our last show, Martin, whether we have a single standard of justice or a two-tiered justice system, the attitude in ASIC is that if you are a lowly member of society, you have less value, less worth compared to other people in society, and that is just a dangerous attitude to have, because if the national media manager thinks like this, God knows what investigators think like, because if they have the same sort of thought, maybe that's why we're starting to see why the big end of town, like the big banks, are protected from investigators, and they tend to go after small-time, particularly financial advisors. So small-time financial advisors are a favorite target for ASIC investigators and ASIC enforcement. Whereas what we saw in the Royal Commission is, if you're a big bank, it's hands off. And so this comment is, if you are prominent, well, you're going to be our friend. We're going to look after you. We're going to treat you seriously. But if you're not prominent, well, you're a nobody, and we can ignore you and we can treat you like crap. And that's what I take from this comment. And again, it just shows how completely rotten ASIC is. And I hope that some of these quotes will be tested next week when ASIC is before estimates, and the chairman can actually explain why he has someone in his organization who thinks along these lines. Because any possible suggestion that this is just isolated to one employee, I don't think so. This national media manager is in a very senior role at ASIC, so dare I say that he wouldn't be in his position if his views were, were out of the norms of him being acceptable. So these types of attitudes, the fact that he's in a prominent senior role, all we can conclude is that there is other senior people who think along these lines, and that's why these comments can be expressed via email, and people are happy to receive them, and obviously this person still has a job.
Yep. And it goes again to this wonderfully important issue about the regulators worried about saving face and worried about their own reputations rather than actually doing the job that they should be doing, that the job that, of course, has a mandate from Parliament to do. And I guess the question, John, will be to what extent will the current Senate inquiry get to some of these issues, or to what extent will they skirt around the edge? Because the worry that I have is that I think there is in Australia a significant alignment between large corporations, the regulators, and Parliament. And it seems to me that they all sort of are in the same dance, as it were. And ordinary Australians and ordinary businesses are looking in from the outside and thinking, well, it's not my show, it's somebody else's show. So how much confidence can we have that there will be a really serious investigation and a really serious change? Or will we still see it all sort of papered over and, things not really change at all? That's the open question now for me.
Well, I mean, the thing is that so you and I have done as much as we can, and so really from here on in, it is up to the inquiry to be able to do their job seriously. So, I mean, in terms of the next big test will be next week when ASIC is before Senate estimates, and we'll see how genuine and robust and aggressive the questioning is. And in the next 24 hours, I'll be talking to someone from the inquiry, so I'll be able to get a bit of a sense as to where the thinking is, and and obviously as we head into the second half of 2023, how aggressive will they be in terms of trying to address these issues? I mean, what I do know, Martin, is that public hearings, I've been led to believe public hearings will get underway, and they won't happen until about July. So there'll be a number of days of public hearings related to ASIC, and it'll be interesting to see how many people are caught and how aggressive some of the senators will be to actually pursue these matters. Because again, even if Senator Bragg and others want to focus on other issues, the problem is that this is a festering sore that keeps on getting worse. And it's caused too many problems and too much heartache. So these senators have to potentially, focus on this issue, and perhaps focus less on other issues, because this issue has been going on for way too long, and the stakes are very high for so many people across the country.
Yes, John. I often am conscious of people saying, well, if you're flying over the target, then you do get a lot of flack. And I suggest that we are flying over a very, very important target here. So we'll continue to do what we can in terms of pushing this issue forward, not for our own interests, but indeed for the interests of the people.
Absolutely, Martin.
Thanks, John. Good to catch up with you, and look forward to the next one.
Thank you very much.
Martin North, John Adams, in the interest of the people. We'll see you next time.